But I kind of want to take it back for a minute, if I could, to kind of an earlier version of Dionysus, that I had briefly touched on, and I think it is really interesting to hold the idea of everything that you just said, the sort of the Semele and Zeus and Dionysus being um, nurtured in Zeus's body. I had heard it was his thigh. This book says it's his belly. Whatever it is, it's somewhere central.
Mm.
The idea of like Zeus with the pregnant bulge on his thigh is weird as hell, but um, that's what it is. So he so holding all of that against this other version and seeing the sort of the ways they mirror each other has been really fascinating to me, and I hope I can do it justice.
Mm.
It's a little scattered. That's maybe not the easiest thing for me to put together, but I'm gonna try.
Mm.
Um, so the version that I have comes from the Mycenaean era, which I think is basically prior to, and I'm going to be referring to my notes a lot here. The Mycenaean era, which I think is prior to the Hellenic era. I think it was sort of like Copper Bronze Age Greece was the Mycenaeans, and then Iron Age into the modern era was maybe the Hellenic Greeks. I'm not entirely sure about that, but there's definitely a spread there, and we're talking about the earlier end of the spectrum.
Mm.
Um, and so let's see what my notes are. Um, so in this myth, he's also known as Zagreus, um, which apparently there's a video game called Hades that involves somebody named Zagreus and Hades and Dionysus and all the other gods and things. So I don't know what that's about, but it's very interesting that his name still shows up in modern pop culture, you know.
Mm.
So what we have from the Mycenaean era is a list of sacrifices that were made to the gods. And so we have a list of the gods' names, but we don't have any other information. We don't have any real stories about them. We just know that Dionysus's name shows up on this list, and that Hades' name doesn't.
Oh,
So
that's
there's
funny.
so there's no on this Mycenaean list. There's no real like god of the underworld in the sense that if Dionysus is the god of wine, then there's nobody to fill the role of the god of the underworld.
Mm.
However, one of the papers my friend sent me is by this scholar, Nicola Miredu. I'm probably butchering that, and my apologies to her. But she sort of pieces together this Mycenaean list of gods, and later the it's called the Derveni Papyrus, which is where we get a lot of these Orphic myths, the hymn that I read at the beginning, and a lot of other things. That whole kind of tradition is mostly just spoken about in other sources, but we did find this one sort of cache of sort of direct papyrus, I suppose. Um, and it's from that we get this idea that perhaps Dionysus was considered the god of the underworld in this earlier time, and that sort of mythology, that story of him, either disappears, like it just fades out, and then we get this new one that you just read, or perhaps it gets sort of wrapped into these Orphic mysteries and is taken underground and sort of maintained there. The old ways are sort of maintained while these new ones kind of come in.
Mm.
So obviously, I'm not a historian. I don't know the specifics, but that's what it's been suggesting to me.
Mm.
Um, and she sort of thinks that at that point when the Hellenic civilization started to develop, the sort of later civilization started to develop, that what was originally Dionysus sort of splits into this Bacchus figure that you're talking about and Hades. Again, you've got this, as in that poem that I read, sort of double natured element of the god. Um, and she claims that Hades, which actually translates as the invisible,
Hmm.
supposedly. That Hades is actually started off as a title or an epithet, an honorific for Dionysus.
Hmm.
So it was like a way of referring to him without using his name,
Hmm.
when he was in his role as Lord of the Underworld. And then the underworld itself is also called Hades, the invisible realm, the other, the other world
Hmm.
where the dead people go, makes sense to me. And so sort of the realm and the nickname sort of took on their own persona and became sort of that became the new form of the Lord of the Underworld.
Hmm.